Over on Sports Extra here on 5 Live Sport. Commentary of the Italian Grand Prix will follow second half commentary of the WSL Merseyside derby. Max Verstappen will start on pole in Monza. Jenny Gow and Alice Powell will be part of our commentary team. Hello guys. Jenny, not a familiar sight this season to see Max Verstappen on pole.
Yeah, a bit unusual. It's only had a couple of poles so far this season and actually only had 2 wins. So he went fastest yesterday and set the fastest average lap time of anyone ever in Formula One history. So he did it in some style. That's what I'm trying to say, Maz.
Yeah, Alice, when he is in that kind of mood, as Jenny says, setting that fastest lap yesterday in F1 history, Verstappen, it's quite difficult to catch him. Who do we think's got the best chance?
Oh, well, he's got 2 charging McLarens that are starting right behind him. Lando Norris, he needs to finish ahead of Oscar Piastri, basically, so he needs to keep his nose clean. But so does Piastri, because he's also in this title fight. Mathematically, Max Verstappen can still win the championship, but it's going to be difficult. A lot's got to go wrong for the McLarens for him to have any chance of really doing it. So I would probably say his closest challengers, Max, are going to be the 2 McLarens. But as I said, they've got something to lose, whereas Max really hasn't.
How much does Lando Norris have to lose? Alice, it feels like an enormous race for him, given obviously what happened last weekend.
It is. He's fallen behind. Obviously, he was very unlucky to get that DNF at Zandvoort. He's lost 18 points to Oscar Piastri because of that DNF. So he is effectively, as I said, he's got to beat Oscar. Oscar has got Charles Leclerc starting right behind him, and the atmosphere here at Monza is electric. The Tifosi cheering on the Ferraris is incredible, and he's going to have the whole crowd behind him. And Ferrari were looking quite handy, but just didn't quite have the pace in qualifying yesterday. And actually, Charles Leclerc won from 4th on the grid here last year, so he's going to be trying to charge forward, and he'll probably also have in the back of his mind that he knows there's a lot of stake for these McLaren drivers.
Jenny, Verstappen obviously broke that fastest lap record yesterday. That was previously held by Lewis Hamilton. Norris actually beat that previous Hamilton time as well. Hamilton 5th fastest yesterday in qualifying, but he's got this grid penalty which is seeing him drop down to start from 10th.
Yeah, it's such a shame. I mean, the Tifosi, the Italian fans, are just sit to my right-hand side here in Monza, and to my left is McLaren's fan base, and they're desperate to see and catch a glimpse of Lewis Hamilton, his first time racing here at Monza for the Italian marque. And yes, it's disappointing that he will shuffle back 5 places and start P10, but he knows that Tifosi will urge him on. He feels their passion, almost a religion, he said yesterday when I spoke to him, and he will try and harness that to get forward as much as he can.
Jenny, Alice, thank you for the time being. So Jenny and Alice will be back for us full commentary of the Italian Grand Prix to come here on 5 Live Sport from 2, but the teams are back out at Anfield.
That will go behind for a goal kick to Everton. So full commentary of the Italian Grand Prix on the way here on 5 Live. In the build-up, let's hear from Jenny Gow.
Hello, will you join us here in Monza on the grid? It's hot, it's humid. I tell you what, it's going to be great. Max Verstappen's on pole position. Next to him, Norris, Piastri, Leclerc. And I've caught up with Eddie Irvine. Eddie, you know what it's like to be a Ferrari driver around here. You got 2nd place. What do you think the Tifosi are going to make of this race?
Listen, it's going to be tough for Ferrari, but they always do better here than most places because they have a strong engine. This is a strong engine circuit, so it'd be amazing if they get a 1-2. It's going to be tough. The McLarens are super strong. We've seen it all year. But Monza always throws up surprises, so fingers crossed, because the place will go crazy if it happens.
I mean, the Tifosi are in fine form, aren't they? What's it like to drive around here with them cheering you on?
Well, you know what? I never really thought about it. You're just in the zone. As a driver, I always had to stay in the zone. Just until the checkered flag came out, you were just thinking about braking, turning, the car. That's all you thought about. Once the checkered flag came down, you were either happy or you weren't, depending on where you finished.
Well, thank you so much. Have a good race, won't you? The Ferrari's being pushed onto the grid right now, Ali. Back to you.
Thank you, Jenny. Jenny Gow on the grid at Monza. Full commentary on the way of the Italian Grand Prix. Over on Sports Extra at the moment, cricket still...
full-time whistle anytime now, I'd say.
Molly, thank you. F1 is our focus for the next couple of hours here on 5 Live Sport. So let's join Harry Benjamin and the team for the Italian Grand Prix in Monza.
Thanks so much indeed. Welcome. We are live at the Temple of Speed for round 16 of the Formula One World Championship. The air is electric. The grandstands a sea of scarlet as the Tifosi wave their flags, their voices rising like a choir for Ferrari. The tension is building nicely, and we are right in the heart of it. We've got an incredibly tight fight awaiting us in the mid-pack. Lewis Hamilton wants to put on a show in front of the Ferrari crowd, and for the title it's a huge race for Lando Norris to claw back much needed points. Red Bull are looking to sneak the spoils though. It's coming up to 2 o'clock in the UK, 3 o'clock in Monza. The Temple of Speed is about to come alive with 20 Formula One cars racing around 53 laps. It is time for the Italian Grand Prix. And this is how the grid looks. Only 18 cars, with 2 going from the pit lane in the form of Pierre Gasly and Isaac Hadjar, both taking new power units. Liam Lawson then will be last in 18th place behind Franco Colapinto's Alpine. Then comes Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin with Esteban Ocon in the Haas 15th. Inside the top 14 now, and it's Alex Albon behind his teammate Carlos Sainz, with Nico Hülkenberg in the Sauber going from 12th. Britain's Oliver Bearman starts just behind Lewis Hamilton, who received a 5-place grid penalty and will start in that Ferrari from 10th, behind the Red Bull of Yuki Tsunoda in 9th, who has got Fernando Alonso just ahead of him in 8th. Gabriel Bortoleto shines in the Sauber, starting 7th, behind the 2 Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli 6th and George Russell in 5th. Into the top 4, he won here from last year. Charles Leclerc starts behind Oscar Piastri, the championship leader, but on the front row, it's Lando Norris in 2nd, with Max Verstappen's Red Bull on pole. Well, over the next couple of hours, we've got some fraught racing to witness. Alongside me to call every step of the way is racing driver Alice Powell. Verstappen with the best view in the house, Alice.
He certainly has, but he's going to have 2 charging McLarens from behind. The track is a little bit dusty out, Harry. We've had 3 support races, and I don't know if there's something in the water at Monza this morning, but it must be said those the F2, F3 race and the Porsche Supercut race they were carnage. There was all sorts going on, so there's a lot of dust around the circuit being kicked up. But we're hoping, of course, for a fantastic Grand Prix here. Charles Leclerc starting 4th place, and he got a huge round of applause as he left his grid spot, along with Lewis Hamilton, who's down in 10th place. He'll be hoping for a repeat of last year, where he got an absolutely electric start and made his way up to the front.
Well, we are keeping an eye on things from the commentary box. Down on the ground, our eyes and ears, it's Jenny Gao. As Jenny, Nico Hülkenberg has just been called to the pits to retire his car before the race.
Yeah, a message from Sauber. He's coming into the pit lane now. The Tifosi standing on their feet, ready for this race. 370,000 people have poured into this Royal Park this weekend. What are they going to see?
Struggling to hear that team radio, but Hülkenberg comes in as the rest of the pack heads to the grid. We have full times in those other WSL games, by the way. It finished Spurs 1, West Ham 0, and it remained goalless between Brighton and Aston Villa. Right now on 5 Live F1, we'll have the Formula One, but then from 6 o'clock, we'll be building up to the men's final. Yannick Sinner against Carlos Alcaraz for the US Open in the tennis final, as we will now have 17 cars on the grid, with a gap for Nico Hülkenberg. The top 13 drivers all on the medium tyre, expecting a one-stop strategy here, but it is a 476 metre rundown to a tight chicane through the right, and then the left awaits us. It's Max Verstappen who sits with the sun beating down on him. The papaya of the McLaren, Lando Norris, alongside. A crucial race for the British driver. Piastri is behind. The green flag flies. It's all eyes to the lights, and it will be foot to the floor as we go racing in Monza, and it's a decent start from the top two. Piastri right behind his teammate Lando Norris, who is squeezed onto the grass by Max Verstappen and has to cut back on. Norris to the inside, side by side between Verstappen and Norris through the left-hander, but Verstappen is forced to cut the chicane. There's a bit of carnage further back, but everyone seems to have made it through. Verstappen emerges now through the right-hander at Curva Grande with the sun beating down, being chased down by Lando Norris, and Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari has popped himself up into third ahead of Oscar Piastri, and Norris almost being pushed out of the second chicane by that Ferrari. Charles Leclerc keen to get himself and battle with the McLaren of Piastri side by side. What a move by Oscar Piastri round the outside through the first Lesmo. Piastri back up into third.
Bold stuff from Oscar Piastri. Norris radio.
Yeah, what's this idiot doing? Come on. He's put me in the grass and he's just got the call.
Stewards will have a look at that one, but great move for Oscar Piastri, exactly what he needed to do, because Ferrari's race pace is going to be behind, it's going to be slower, significantly slower expecting than the McLaren, so Oscar had to get past to keep in touching distance with the top two.
That was Norris referring to the incident between Verstappen and himself, and he's been told to give back the position as Max Verstappen to try and avoid a penalty. He almost put Lando Norris, he did put Lando Norris onto the grass. Down the main straight we go once more. Lap 2 begins, and Norris gets in front of Verstappen into the braking zone as Piastri tries to get down the inside of Max Verstappen as well and defend from Charles Leclerc. Piastri runs deep, Charles Leclerc gets the undercut, Norris leads out of the first chicane, Verstappen second, and what a battle between the top 4 drivers in the first 2 racing laps around this temple of speed. Towards the second chicane now, Piastri trying to look again to get through on Leclerc, but Leclerc shuts the door, and they all bring in George Russell, just lurking behind him 5th. Gabriel Bortoleto is 6th, ahead of Alonso. Hamilton's up to 8th, Tsunoda 9th, Kimi Antonelli's dropped positions, he's rounding out the top 10.
Now, Norris, importantly, has got 2 cars between him and Oscar Piastri. DRS is enabled, and we're in our first zone on this lap, and that is down that back straight. So, a good lead so far for Lando Norris. Clever to let Max Verstappen was clever letting him back through.
Man, Leclerc's all over the place on the braking. Had to avoid him.
And that was going down into turn 4. There was slight movement from the Ferrari, but the Ferrari is quick in a straight line, isn't it, Harry? So this is not what Oscar needs, but actually, importantly, Leclerc has dropped out of the DRS of Max Verstappen.
A huge fight here we are seeing for the top 4 positions, but Lando Norris and Max Verstappen just slightly escaping up the road. Charles Leclerc moves to the inside, coming down to the first chicane. Piastri to the outside, lock up from Charles Leclerc, runs deep. So does George Russell behind. Piastri trying to get a front nose alongside the rear wing of Charles Leclerc, but that compromises him on the exit, falls back behind. It's lap 3 of 53 here at the Italian Grand Prix, and surely not. Gabriel Bortoleto, the rookie in the Sauber, representing Brazil, side by side with George Russell, trying to get himself up into 5th. What a brilliant battle, what a brilliant race he's having.
Yeah, one of the Sauber cars is already out of course. Hulkenberg didn't take the start, and his manager Fernando Alonso watches on as his protege is making his way up, charging up behind the back of George Russell. But I must say, Harry, we've just had a real big proof of how fast that Ferrari is in a straight line. Even with DRS for Piastri, no DRS for Charles Leclerc, Piastri was still unable to get past Charles Leclerc, and now that gap up front between Verstappen and Norris stays the same, but then Charles Leclerc has got a big gap. It's around about over 2 seconds between himself and Max Verstappen now, which is not what Piastri needs.
No. He does have that 34-point buffer in the championship standings coming into this race, which is why it is such a must-win for Lando Norris, who has got company in the form of Max Verstappen with the aid of DRS. Late on the brakes is Max Verstappen, tries it round the outside of the chicane, forces the move as Charles Leclerc runs deep behind and cuts the chicane. Verstappen retakes the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. He barged his way past Lando Norris after forcing Norris onto the grass in the run down to lap 1, and the run down down to the turn one on lap one, gave back the position to avoid a penalty. Norris then had the lead, but now on lap 4, Verstappen retakes it. Norris second, Leclerc third, Piastri still all over the back of him in 4th. Then comes Russell's Mercedes, with Bortoleto 6th ahead of Alonso. Hamilton's up to 8th, Tsunoda 9th, Antonelli is 10th.
He needs to give that back. He went to defend and went low.
Yeah, we saw.
That's what Piastri had to say about Charles Leclerc running deep at the first chicane. He cut the corner. Did he gain a lasting advantage from that, Alice? That will be the question.
That's going to be the question. We'll have to see that again to make any judgment on it. But up front, Verstappen's looking good. He's looking fast. 8 tenths is the gap now, so Norris still within DRS. Norris won't want to lose too much time fighting Verstappen. He'll be aware, trust me, he'll be able to see in his mirror that he's got a red Ferrari behind and it's not his teammate Oscar Piastri. However, actually he's lost DRS now to Max Verstappen, and race simulations that we saw in free practice were actually pretty close between the Red Bull and the McLarens. The McLarens were a tenth or 2 tenths quicker as battling behind, and that is
Hamilton.
Yes, he's snuck through on Fernando Alonso.
Lovely late braking move from the Ferrari driver, his first Italian Grand Prix, racing in front of that Tifosi crowd, all screaming his name, makes the move on Fernando Alonso and gets himself up into 7th. As we get another look at the start, they're still continuing to race out there. Leclerc under pressure from Piastri, but it was the forcing onto the grass that we're looking at again from Verstappen in the run down to turn 1 on lap 1.
It was, and I think it was the right decision for Red Bull to make that call to give the place back, because that likely would have been a potential penalty there for Max Verstappen. Just a better start from Lando Norris on the dirtier side of the grid, was able to pull up at least 3/4 of the way alongside Max Verstappen, who just gave him no room, forced him on the grass. Lando had a little look round the outside, but thought better of it, but was boxed in slightly slow out of the second chicane. So we'll have a look on board for Max Verstappen now. You can hear he just got a little bit of wheel spin there, and he basically said, "You're not coming through there, Lando," forced him on the grass.
You let the brakes go, mate.
And that'll be the clincher, isn't it? Because Verstappen cut that first chicane, and they've had a penalty before. Preventative measures being done by Red Bull pit wall to avoid a penalty. Verstappen, though, back in the lead of this race as Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc go toe-to-toe once more into the first chicane. Piastri getting himself through on Charles Leclerc and up into 3rd place. Leclerc then trying to keep with him through the Curva Grande as it arcs to the right-hand side. The sun glints off the scarlet red Ferrari as it chases down the papaya orange of Piastri, but into the second chicane now, a left then a right. Piastri confirms that position in 3rd. He will now set sail and target his teammate Lando Norris a further few seconds up the field now.
He's already stretching his legs, is Oscar Piastri. Next up is his teammate Lando Norris, but he's got a big gap to close down. It's over 3 seconds to try and close that gap. So he just needs to try and not take too much out of his tyres at this stage in the race. Still jostling position for slightly further back down the order between Behrman and Antonelli. Tsunoda is still occupying 9th place. He hasn't got DRS to Alonso now, so he's probably actually going to come under pressure from Antonelli. Behrman, Sainz is then 5 tenths off Behrman in 12th, with Albon slightly further behind, who is the top of our hard tyre runners. So everyone in the top 12 is on the medium tyre.
Yeah, there's a couple of messages coming through from race control. That incident between Verstappen and Norris no longer being investigated after it was reviewed, as we have Lewis Hamilton lining up Gabriel Bortoleto for a move. Bortoleto doesn't make that too difficult for the 7-time champion, and Hamilton gets himself up and into 6th. Hamilton qualified yesterday in 5th, but had a 5-place grid penalty, started in 10th. That was after a yellow flag infringement carried over from last time out, and so far is making gains in these early stages. Lap 7 of 53. No further investigation between Hamilton and Yuki Tsunoda. That was for leaving the track and gaining an advantage down at turn 1. Ocon and Stroll have also been noted for an incident, forcing another driver off the track. So that's happening further down. Verstappen leads Norris by 2 seconds now. Then comes Oscar Piastri. Leclerc now a second away from Piastri in fourth. Russell is fifth, ahead of Hamilton. Bortoletto seventh, ahead of Alonso. Tsunoda and Antonelli the top 10. Outside of the point-scoring places at the moment is Oliver Behrman, still where he started in 11th, ahead of the two Williams, Sainz and Albon. Ocon and Lawson make up the top 15. Lawson opting to go for a short, aggressive first stint in the hope of some kind of safety car, having started at the back because he's on the soft tyre. That will degrade quickly. Stroll is 16th, ahead of Colapinto. Hadjar is 18th, and Gasly is 19th. Nico Hülkenberg retired before this race even began with issues as we embark on lap 8 of 53. Let's get a check-in on the third ODI in the cricket. Ellie Oldroyd.
Huge landmark moment for Jacob Bethel, his first ever professional 100 in cricket. He's 101 not out, 289 for 2 England. In the 40th over, they are set for a big score here, and Bethel embraced by Joe Root, who has scored more test match runs than any other Englishman, almost any other international batter ever. 289 for 2 England have been put into bat.
Thanks, Ellie. We'll keep you updated with all of the goings-on in the cricket across the next hour or so on 5 Live. But right now we are watching the Italian Grand Prix. It's lap 8 of 53. Verstappen leads by 2.2 seconds to Lando Norris. Let's check in with our eyes and ears on the ground. Jenny Gow.
And every time one of the Ferraris goes past the start-finish straight, any of the grandstands, a huge eruption of applause goes up. They feel every movement. They're trying and praying for Leclerc and Hamilton to improve, and they are. Just a note that on pit stops, lap 22 is when we expect the pit stop window to open for most of the people starting on the mediums. We didn't expect anyone to start on the soft, so maybe 12 laps and they'll have to come in for changing tyres.
Yeah, I think the only person was Liam Lawson, wasn't he? And I think hoping for some sort of safety car, of which there was about a 50% chance of there being one. Still is across the data going back to 2017. But the closest fight unfolding at the moment, having put in a great shift, it has to be said, Alice, fighting for third. Charles Leclerc has now fallen adrift and now is under pressure from the Mercedes of George Russell.
Out of DRS range then for Oscar Piastri, only just though, but he's got a mirrors full of George Russell. And then slightly further back, 2.1 seconds is the gap between Russell and Hamilton. And Bortoletto, he's literally just fell out of DRS from Lewis Hamilton. He still has his manager all over the back of his rear end, and that is Fernando Alonso. So field's starting to spread out. Remember, even when we have these long straights here at Monza, it still is hard to overtake. The trimmed off downforce, that they take downforce off for the nature of the circuit, long straights. But then that makes DRS not as effective. So we saw it took a few laps for Oscar Piastri to get past Charles Leclerc, and I've just seen that the stewards have deemed to give Esteban Ocon a 5-second penalty. So that's going to drop him, that will drop him all the way down to around about 18th place.
Yeah, he'd be able to serve that at his first pit stop when he comes in. He'll take that at the first opportunity. The team won't be able to touch the car for 5 seconds, and then they can get to work on Ocon's tyre change, as Liam Lawson, who started on the soft tyre, is the first to pit at the end of lap 9, so he will fall to the back. They'll be hoping for some kind of chaos to unfold to bring them back into this race. Just 19 cars in this one. Nico Hülkenberg retiring before we even started. Verstappen leads, the gap now 3 seconds, slightly extending his advantage, having just set the fastest lap of the race. Piastri is a further 4.3 seconds back. Charles Leclerc starting to lose his pace here, and still has George Russell for company in 5th, with Lewis Hamilton closing in on the back of that duo in 6th, as we're going to get a look at why Esteban Ocon, Alice, got a penalty for forcing another driver, Lance Stroll, off at the second chicane.
Yeah, I have to say that penalty is deserved for Ocon going down into the De La Roja chicane, turn 4 and 5. Lance Stroll got a better exit out of the first chicane, drawn up alongside Esteban Ocon, and basically Ocon didn't leave a car's width on his right-hand side where the track space was being occupied by Lance Stroll. Stroll took to the grass and actually had a big snap and had to go down the escape road. So the stewards have got that decision correct, I feel, but it looks like George Russell is just, with that slippery Ferrari in a straight line, is just struggling to get past. This is going to be hampering his progress, of course, up to the back of the McLarens, which will be optimistic, but it's going to also hamper his tyre degradation as well.
Also, Ferrari are going to start to look at the pace differential here between Leclerc and Hamilton. Last lap around, Hamilton did a 1:23.8, Charles Leclerc 1:24.1. Hamilton is closing in on that battle between Charles Leclerc and Russell. Leclerc is not able to shake off Russell, who is currently in 5th, and we can see them all now coming towards the first Lesmo, the first of the right-handers in the middle part of the lap. Further back, the next tightest fight is Fernando Alonso still stuck behind Gabriel Bortoleto. Sauber opting to go all out for straight line speed here, so Alonso might find himself a tad frustrated behind the man that his management stable looks after and has gotten himself into Formula One. Tsunoda in 9th, keeping Kimi Antonelli at bay at the moment. Those are the point scorers right now. Jenny.
Well, no points on offer for Nico Hülkenberg. He had to retire before the race had even begun. It was a technical issue for Sauber. So one of them's going very fast and one of them's not going at all. Just thinking, we've got someone coming into the pits. I just looked up there and I don't know who it is. So hopefully they'll go past me in a second. But just on that soft starter, who is Liam Lawson, pitted at lap 10. He's gone onto the hard tyre, and I think it'll be in the hope that he can stretch it out all the way to the final few laps, then convert onto the soft tyre and run it home as quickly as he can. That's a different strategy. We're expecting people to do the one stop. That will be a 2-stop, but let's see if it works.
Yeah, we shall see as we are on lap 12 of 53 of the Italian Grand Prix, but there's been a wicket in the cricket. Ellie Oldroyd.
Yes, and Jacob Bethel's superb innings is over, out for 110, his first ever 100 in professional cricket, and he's done it in a one-day international for his country. 299 for 3 England, but they're still heading for a massive total because we've still got another 10 overs to go. Joe Root's on 79.
Thanks, Ellie. As we're hearing Esteban Ocon team radio and being told he's got a time penalty, a 5-second time penalty for his incident with Lance Stroll. Those two quite good friends, actually, off the track. And Ocon not exactly kicking up a fuss about it, but they will serve that at the first available pit stop to them. They'll stay out for a little while longer yet. The only one to stop at the moment is Liam Lawson, who swapped his soft tyres for the hard tyre. He'll try and possibly see how long he can go on those. Maybe some safety car interventions will help him. Another fastest lap at the front, though. Max Verstappen now 3.8 seconds clear of Lando Norris. Verstappen looking to take only his 3rd win of the season. Lando Norris, important for him to finish ahead of Oscar Piastri. Came into this weekend having scored no points at the Dutch Grand Prix due to a retirement. 34 points behind his teammate Oscar Piastri. So right now, Alice, Norris's main battle really is just to stay ahead of his teammate if he cannot win the race.
It's exactly that, and I'm just wondering whether Norris is just looking after his tyres, because he's actually starting to do personal best. So there's a couple of laps where he wasn't doing a personal best, and now he's started to do personal best. So I wonder if he was just having a look at after his tyres. And the same goes for Charles Leclerc as well. He is now lighting up the timing screen. He's dropped into the 123s, whereas before he was stuck in the 124s. So either he's been given the hurry up by Ferrari, or he was just purely managing his tyres.
Ferrari have been fastest in a straight line all weekend long, and that will be keeping him with that advantage ahead of the Mercedes behind. But perhaps he was just managing those tyres to eke out a stint, expecting the pit lane to open for those medium tyre runners, of which the top 12 drivers are. Around about lap 22 onwards, you might be able to eke it out a little bit later, depending on how well your tyre management is around here. Just 19 cars left in this one. No Nico Hülkenberg. Tell you who's having an absolutely brilliant race is Fernando Alonso, currently in 8th. And that car is one of the slowest in the straight lines around this circuit. And for Alonso to qualify inside that top 10, but to be keeping within touching distance of Bortoleto Sauber, which we know is, I think, is the 2nd fastest in a straight line. It's superb work from Fernando Alonso, isn't it?
Very good job. He's been around for a long time, and he knows how to drive a race car fast, whether it's a not very good race car or a very good race car, and he's still hunting down 7 tenths is the gap from him and Bortoletto, who's in 7th place. He still has Yuki Tsunoda behind, who did momentarily drop back in within 1 second of Alonso, but that gap's just opened up now with Antonelli closing back down. But George Russell is still trying to find a way past Charles Leclerc, who is increasing the pace as he's actually bringing George Russell with him. Lewis Hamilton now has lost a bit of pace, so he was looking around about the 1.5 second mark behind George Russell, but now that gap has stretched out to 2.8.
Yeah, and just coming back to that battle with Bortoletto, he's basically at the head of a DRS train, isn't it? Everybody's in a bit of a queue behind him. Bortoletto 7th, Alonso 8th, Tsunoda, Antonelli, Behrman, Sainz, Albon, Ocon, Stroll. All the way, you could argue Hadjar as well in that, from 7th to 16th. All pretty nip and tuck on the racetrack as we're on lap 15 of 53 of the Italian Grand Prix, round 16 of the Formula One World Championship. But there's been another wicket in the cricket. Ellie.
Two in quick succession, and Harry Brook only scored 2 runs, run out 302 for 4. Joe Root is still on 79, but England, having reached this point of passing 300 with 10 overs to go, will be wanting to push as close as they can to 400. But England 302 for 4 in the 41st over.
Ball-by-ball coverage continues over on Sports Extra. Right here on 5 Live now, we're enjoying an intriguing Italian Grand Prix play out. One Jetty Gal that Max Verstappen currently has a stranglehold on, 4.2 seconds clear at the top from Lando Norris.
He does, but we're waiting for the pit window to open in maybe about 5 or 6 laps. That'll be the start of the medium tyres turning off. Just a note on Kimi Antonelli in front of his home fans in P10. He started P6 but lost 4 places. Team Radio, Leclerc. Oh, I don't think it's going to play out. I just said
this is good, nice and clean.
We got it, Jenny. Just being told this is good, nice and clean from his engineer on the radio. So being given some positive reinforcement.
Well, that's what Kimi Antonelli needs, positive reinforcement. Dropped 4 places off the start line. Said he was struggling with nerves. He was sure he was going to be nervous at the start of this race. But he's learned from Imola, his first ever home race, and hopefully brings it home for some points. That would be nice for him.
Yeah, it would be. He hasn't actually finished higher than 10th in a European Grand Prix so far this season, has Kimi Antonelli. Got his first Q3 appearance, qualifying inside the top 10 for this Grand Prix since the British Grand Prix in the summer. So it's been a mixed weekend for Kimi Antonelli after the back of a tough weekend last time out of the Dutch Grand Prix, where he had a collision with Charles Leclerc, on which he received a penalty for that. This is the sound of Charles Leclerc making his way towards the Ascari complex. A left followed by a curved right, then a quick flick out left once more, as you then have a short straight down towards the final corner. The right-hander, the parabolica, a dab on the brakes. Your steering turns to the right and you try and carry as much speed as you can, and foot to the floor. 80% of a lap is done at full throttle around this temple of speed, and the gap's now just starting to balance out between the top 6 in the field. Verstappen 4.3 seconds ahead of Norris, then it's Piastri, Charles Leclerc, George Russell the top 5, Lewis Hamilton up in 6th now, having started 10th. Bortoletto holding strong at the head of a long old queue. Alonso is 8th, Tsunoda 9th, Antonelli 10th. They are your point scorers. Oliver Behrman frustrated. He started this race in 11th off the back of last weekend, where he took a career best 6th place, did the British rookie, racing for Haas, and will be desperate to score more points here. He had a run of about 3 or 4 consecutive 11th place finishes earlier on in the season. It's almost more frustrating to finish in 11th, isn't it, Alice? Because you're 1 point away from 1 place away from a single point.
You are not the best place, as you said, but of course he's still within touching distance of Antonelli. A bit of gravel being kicked up by Charles Leclerc, and then by his the driver that's chasing him down, George Russell, just on the exit of turn 7. Lewis Hamilton started to reel them back in, but out front Max Verstappen sets another fastest lap of the race, a 1:22.890, which last time round was 0.4 of a second quicker than Lando Norris. So still trying to match the pace of the Red Bull is Norris, but isn't able to do so at the moment.
Another fastest lap for Max Verstappen with a 1:22.890. The race lap record is a 1:21.0 held by Rubens Barrichello in 2004 as Kimi Antonelli finally gets himself through on Yuki Tsunoda down the inside with the aid of DRS coming into the first chicane. Tsunoda tries to stay with him through the Curva Grande but won't be able to. The Mercedes in front of the Red Bull. Both drivers under pressure here, but the future for Antonelli pretty much secured. For Yuki Tsunoda, on the other hand, very much not so, as he's now got Oliver Bearman right behind him, keen to get himself up into that position.
It was a hydraulic issue that was the fault of the Sauber of Nico Hülkenberg, so frustrating for him.
Into the second chicane for Carlos Sainz, lock up, and has to take to the escape road, but he didn't take to the full escape road. He might get himself into trouble with that. The race director has a permitted route when you run off the racing track in order to rejoin in a safe manner, and Carlos Sainz might well be flagged for that, and he already has been. It's been noted.
Dipping a wheel on the gravel for Lando Norris, who's still trying to chase time. Another fastest lap once again for Max Verstappen. So we've got a driver going into the pits, and that is Ollie Bearman. So he's going to go down the order. He's going to get rid of the medium tyre, and you would have thought he's going to pop on the hards.
Yeah, feels like an early stop though. Bearman in, Jenny.
Yeah, it does. A couple of laps early anyway, but it's going on to the hard tyres. 3.3 seconds. I think he was a bit stuck in a DRS train, so they're just taking him out and seeing if the undercut will work. That's where he has to go really fast now, try and make up that time. Let's see if it works or not.
Yeah, I think Haas just wanting, as you say, Jenny, to get him out of that traffic. The undercut here, not as effective as you might see in other Grand Prix. That's when, if you are the car pitting before the ones in front of you, you try and get out of the way, get some fresh rubber on from the pits, and then find yourself in some clean air so you can go faster.
It's a solid Max. Keep building the advantage. We know how things can change, so keep eking out that advantage this stint.
That's the voice of Gianpiero Lambiase, Max Verstappen's race engineer, just reminding him to keep at it. 5.6 seconds the gap between himself and Norris, but we know how quickly that can be wiped out by a safety car. We've seen red flag races here before, and then absolute carnage in the restart. Go back to 2020 when Pierre Gasly took his one and only race victory, as we have got movement in the pits by the looks of it, and Red Bull seem to be coming out and waiting Yuki Tsunoda, who does come in to the pits, as we're also looking at Fernando Alonso still getting right up close and personal to Gabriel Bortoleto Sauber. This the battle for 7th and 8th as Tsunoda has his pit stop. 2.3 seconds, gets rid of his medium tyre. So Tsunoda responding then to the Haas of Ollie Bearman, who pitted one lap ago. Those two were right next to each other on the track. Jenny.
Yeah, really nice, clean pit stop, 2.3 seconds. So that's a second advantage on Bearman, who came in just before. Let's see what happens.
He's got out just in front, Jenny, coming into the first chicane, but Tsunoda's tyres now need to get up to temperature. Bearman will have the advantage of having one lap. Cooked tyres, up to speed, up to temperature through the Curva Grande. Bearman to the inside. Tsunoda blocks off the inside line early on the brakes for Tsunoda as Bearman makes it look easy in the Haas and sweeps round the chicane through on Tsunoda. The earlier pit stop working out then for the British rookie.
And that will be frustrating for Tsunoda. I think he might have been looking to potentially undercut Alonso and Bortoleto potentially. So dropping back behind Bearman is not what he wanted, as, wow, Pierre Gasly has kicked up a whole load of gravel on the exit of turn 7. And into the pits we have Bortoleto and Alonso down to Jenny in the pit lane.
Yeah, they came in so tightly together. Alonso really chomping at the bit. Can he overtake him in the pits, or will he have to wait? I think he's done it. These two teammates, well, they're not teammates, they're manager and trainee.
It's going to be side by side, I think, coming out of the pit exit. No, Alonso's done it. Good teamwork from Aston Martin there. And that will be hugely frustrating for Sauber, because Bortoletto's going to have to look at one of the AlphaTauris. I think it might be Liam Lawson, who pitted super early. Remember, he started on the soft tyre, and he's got himself in between Alonso and Bortoletto as they come out of the pit lane in 15th place for Alonso, Lawson 16th, Bortoletto 17th. So that'll be frustrating for the Sauber team, which will become Audi next year.
It did look like that front right tyre was a bit slow going on for Bortoletto. And his pit entry was super aggressive, and actually had to really hit on the anchors to make sure he didn't go into the back of Bortoletto, who had a bit slightly slower entry actually, and Alonso did lock up. But Tsunoda's potential undercut, well, that didn't work, and it was super close on the exit, and Alonso would have had a big smile on his face as he saw the Sauber still stationary as he drove past. But Behrman, it worked out for him, boxing a lap earlier. He is right up behind Bortoletto now.
The issue that will come Fernando Alonso's way, though, is the straight line disadvantage he has. He was able to stay with Gabriel Bortoletto, courtesy of DRS, the drag reduction system, when you're in the allotted zones down the start-finish straight and on the way to Ascari, where you are able to press the button which opens the rear wing flap, which gives you a minimal advantage, it has to be said, around this particular track. It gives you about a 0.15 second gain on the car in front of you. You can only activate it when you are within a second of the car in front. And they've also got a Liam Lawson to contend with now, but he is now being dispatched by Bortoletto.
He has, and I was just about to say, I think that's going to help with having Lawson in between, because he just dropped out of DRS. But as you said there, Harry, Bortoletto is up, past and through. Behrman is going to be the next person to be having a look down the inside of Liam Lawson, but he's got Yuki Tsunoda all over the back of him as well.
19 cars left in this Grand Prix. Nico Hulkenberg retired before the race starts. The pit stoppers so far have included Alonso, Lawson, Bortoletto, Behrman and Tsunoda, who have now worked their way to the back of the pack. It's Max Verstappen who leads by 6.1 seconds to Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri third. Charles Leclerc is fourth ahead of George Russell. Then it's Hamilton in sixth. Kimi Antonelli is seventh. The two Williamses, Sainz and Albon, now inside the points in eighth and ninth. Esteban Ocon sits in that final points paying position in 10th, but he'll have to serve a 5-second time penalty at his first pit stop for forcing Lance Stroll off the track. And it's Stroll in the Aston Martin who is the car behind him in 11th. Hadjar 12th ahead of the two Alpines. Colapinto having a decent race so far, keeping ahead of his teammate Pierre Gasly, but there's a tyre disparity there. Colapinto going long on the medium tyres, Gasly on the hard, and then comes those who are pitted behind, which is the sound you're hearing. Ollie Behrman chasing down Liam Lawson for 17th. Lawson, who pitted at the end of lap 9, having started on the soft rubber, the one that degrades the quickest, but is much faster in the first stages of its life than those around it. Didn't quite pay off for him, I think. Was looking for some sort of safety car intervention to help him on that one.
Gap out front is increasing. Harry, Verstappen leads Lando Norris now by 6.2 seconds. We are catching a replay of how Bortoletto was able to get past Liam Lawson. Liam had a slight lock-up going into turn 1. That then allowed Bortoletto to get a much stronger exit, and I think Liam thought, yeah, I'm going to be a sitting duck here. Didn't really put up any defence through the Curva Grande, and it was job done for Bortoletto before he even reached turn 4. And a lock-up from Antonelli, who had to cut the chicane down at turn 4. There's a small gravel strip there, so you have to go through that, but you are meant to follow the race director's instructions, which he did not do there. But Piastri, he's turned up the wick now. He's just at the fastest middle sector of anyone in this race.
We know Piastri always seems to be able to manage his pace pretty well. It is now the time he starts to get a move on and close that 6-second gap to his teammates. Meanwhile, the battles commence in that midfield, or still continue, I should say. Bortoletto. Just now a little bit of breathing space between him and Liam Lawson, suffering on those old, now hard tyres. Bearman and Sonoda right behind on much fresher rubber, as we're on lap 25 or 53 in Ferrari Heartland. The prancing horse banners rippling in the late summer breeze. The colour red covers the grandstands. And every time the Ferrari is seen, you can hear the roars.
Turn 4, the racing line. Short from this lap, please.
I think there's more to win by him, guys. I don't agree, please.
Into turn 4, keep the racing line, follow instructions. That sounds like team orders for Carlos Sainz, who is ahead at the moment. And we've got Fernando Alonso going slow while the Williams debate over team orders. Fernando Alonso, who was running so well in this race, looks to be going slowly, as we're seeing Alex Albon running side by side with his teammate Carlos Sainz, approaching turn 4, keeping the racing line as Sainz was instructed, and that allows the Thai driver through on his teammate and up into 8th spot. Sainz now down to 9th. But what has happened to Fernando Alonso? Jenny Gow, you think he's coming to the pits?
Yeah, he's coming to the pits, the Aston Martin. It seemed low on its right-hand side. I don't know if it's a suspension failure or a puncture, but they're not going to it to... let's hear from some radio.
Suspension failure. This is unbelievable, man.
Suspension failure for Fernando Alonso. He peels into his grid spot outside of the garage. The team will retire Alonso, and the damage was done, I think, coming out of Ascari. There is a rumble strip of curb there, and he just approached it, and that was enough. Rear right suspension just seems to go, and suddenly the sparks fly, and that car limps back to the pits. Fernando Alonso out of this race, having scored points in 6 of the last 7 races. He will pick up none this afternoon.
And that's a curb that you do use time and time again throughout a Grand Prix, through qualifying. So it's not like Fernando Alonso did anything wrong there. But that is such bad luck for him, who, as we've already talked about, was having a fantastic race. Racing up in the top 10. Of course, he was the first sort of lot of those drivers in the top 10 to box. So frustration for him, but that's released Bortoletto now, who has a gap of 1.7 behind Bearman. But Ocon is trying to hunt down Carlos Sainz, who did keep to that tighter line, which then allowed Alexander Albon to go swooping around the outside to then have the inside line for turn 4. But you could tell there was frustration from Carlos Sainz, who didn't particularly want to give up that position.
That's the voice of British racing driver Alice Powell, alongside myself, Harry Benjamin, in the commentary box for this Italian Grand Prix, round 16 of the Formula 1 World Championship, lap 27 of 53. Here's Piastri.
Plan A plus 15. Do you think that's possible?
I think so. Yes.
Plan A plus 15 for Oscar Piastri. So one would presume Plan A is a 1-stop, and they're wanting to extend that by 15 laps.
That's a lot of laps to extend it by, as we just see Alex Albon having a lock-up and cutting the chicane at turn 1. He won't be the last driver to do that. So 26 laps have passed of the Grand Prix so far, and we are fairly deep into the window, really, of where we expect the medium tyre runners to box. But are we going to see, by that radio message there, Oscar Piastri potentially extend that? His pace is looking pretty decent, a couple of tenths of a second behind his teammate.
Oh, my fronts are dead in traffic.
The minute Carlos Sainz is told to fall back, and his front tyres start to lose life. On Piastri then, so that he's out there at the moment in third on the medium tyre. So that would indicate the extension then, staying out on track. In continuing with a 1-stop, he's going to go as long as he can, ideally for the next 15 or so laps, stick on a soft tyre and go for an aggressive final stint, quite possibly, for Oscar Piastri down in third as we have action in the pits. Jenny.
Yes, George Russell's in the Mercedes. It's a quick pit stop as he goes out on the hard tyres. 2.9 seconds was his pit stop. And just on Alonso, out of this race now. Such a disappointment, because we thought this might be the time that he could score outrageously. And unfortunately for him, every time he gets himself in a position to get some good points, it falls away from him time and time again. Such a shame.
2 retirements now as George Russell peels out of the pit lane and rejoins this race just ahead of the Alpine of Franco Colapinto. Quite crucial there for Russell to get ahead of the traffic. Colapinto hasn't stopped yet, still going of the 2 Alpines, 13th and 14th.
I know. What are your thoughts about continuing until we can put a soft?
Yeah, I mean, we may as well continue for now.
So, we just heard radio between Oscar Piastri and his engineer looking to extend their stint on track. That would indicate continuing to go along on the medium tyre, then switching to the soft tyre. An aggressive final stint on that. Only 1 stop expected as we see drama between Liam Lawson and the Racing Bulls and Yuki Tsunoda.
What a story, bro!
And that was Tsunoda's response for that. That was going into the second chicane, side by side. Tsunoda on the inside, Lawson on the outside, and both ending up driving off the track. And actually Tsunoda then was, I think, let back in front of Liam Lawson a few laps ago. So perhaps Lawson, we know he's building up a bit of a reputation for himself as the Kiwi driver for wheel-to-wheel battle. They are, at the moment, 17th and 18th. Frustrating for both those drivers in the Red Bull teams. Kimi Antonelli, Jenny, in the pits.
Yes, he's coming into the pits. He's put on the hard tyre and goes back out onto the track. A quick stop. I think it was 2.9 seconds. Nicely done.
Could be a decent weekend for Antonelli to try and pick up some crucial points. Mercedes coming into this weekend sitting just 12 points behind Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, but Ferrari both ahead of them at the moment as Kimi Antonelli rejoins this race down in 14th, just ahead of the Sauber of Gabriel Bortoleto. Lap 29 of 53. Verstappen leads, 6.1 seconds the gap between himself and Lando Norris. Then comes Oscar Piastri. We're expecting now both McLarens to stay out as long as they can before putting the soft tyre on, as we're getting a close-up look of the graining and the degradation on Max Verstappen's front tyres, those mediums screaming for dear life. Leclerc and Hamilton, the 2 Ferraris, 4th and 5th. Then comes Albon in 6th. The top 6 have yet to pit in this race, along with Carlos Sainz, who is under investigation for failing to follow race director's instructions. Ocon hasn't pitted, he's in 8th, neither has Stroll or Hadjar. That's how the top 10 look. Then it's Russell, the 2 Alpines, Antonelli now 14th, having pitted, Bortoleto behind him, Behrman, Tsunoda and Lawson, the 18 drivers that remain. Fernando Alonso retiring due to suspected suspension damage and failure, I should say, and Nico Hülkenberg failed to start the race for Sauber.
No, Oscar Piastri momentarily had the fastest lap of the race there, but George Russell, who has pitted, don't forget, has taken that away. But back to that Tsunoda incident, I actually think Tsunoda was at fault there. He didn't give Lawson any room, and the sister car, Max Verstappen, you're right what you said there, Harry. Those medium tyres for Verstappen are not looking fantastic, and Norris is closing down the gap now. It's under 6 seconds and 0.3 of a second quicker than Max Verstappen this time round. Oscar Piastri has lost a couple of tenths to Norris. So the McLarens are still setting personal bests this deep into running that medium tyre.
But this is the thing, though. I want to get a nice up-close look at the 2 McLaren's front tyres, because when we just saw a lovely slow-mo replay of Max Verstappen's medium tyre, that looked like it was close to giving up life, though, Alice. Is he going to be able to hang on, really, on those medium tyres and try and match the McLarens with their strategy?
It's going to be difficult, because at the moment it really doesn't look like he's got the pace, unless Verstappen has decided at this moment in time to back the pace off and just try and nurse those tyres a little bit more. We've heard those radio messages from McLaren, but of course they know that every other team on the grid can hear those radio messages, so they could be giving out false signals. But in the pits comes Carlos Sainz. He gets rid of a medium set of tyre and puts on a set of hards.
Yep. 3-second stop from the Williams crew, and Sainz having played the team game, letting Albon through a few laps ago as those 2 were battling out on track. Sainz reappears in this Grand Prix with a fresh set of boots and comes out down in 16th place, having had a frustrating qualifying for both Williams drivers. Just weren't able to get their tyres in the right window when it came down to it. Needed longer to understand what their soft tyre certainly was running as. In practice, Sainz was up inside the top 3 in both occasions. This is the sound of Franco Colapinto in the Alpine, the Argentine racer, locking up the front left, going down into the first chicane, and his tyres looking a little bit worse for wear as well, and he had to take to the runoff area and brought a whole load of gravel onto the track in doing so.
He did, and it's not often you see an outside tyre have a lock up there, and that was the two Alpines swapping position. It must be said they're kind of having a race on their own all the way down the order. They are yet to pit, and when they do, that will release the likes of Antonelli, Bortoletto, Behrman, Tsunoda and Lawson through, as this battle still continues between Stroll and Ocon. Ocon still has that 5-second penalty to serve when he does come into the pits, but Hadjar is snuck up on the back of this battle now. He's really within touching distance of Lance Stroll, who's going to have the tricky task of attacking and defending all at the same time.
Fresh power unit in the back of Isaac Hadjar's Racing Bulls as well, the French rookie racing for the sister Red Bull team, who took a podium last time out, the first of his career, just 15 races into his Formula One career, and on pace was up inside the top 4, running well, and inherited that podium with Lando Norris retiring, but was there to pick up the spoils. Right now though, had a qualifying to forget, is trying to work his way back into the points, currently sitting 9th, yet to pit. It's lap 33 of 53. Let's check back with the cricket. Ellie Oldroyd.
Joe Root has his 100 off 95 balls. Absolutely magnificent from him. He's passed 1,000 international runs for the season, following on from Jacob Bethel's first ever century in first-class cricket, or in any kind of professional cricket. Joe Root's 19th in ODIs alone. England at 361 for 4, and we're in the 46th over.
Continued ball-by-ball coverage over on Sports Extra. Action in the pit lane. We talk of Isaac Hadjar, and he's coming for you, Jenny Gow.
Yes, the Racing Bulls pit crew assemble. His hard tyres have come off. 2.2 seconds, that's brilliant for them. And the medium tyres have gone on. Where will it drop him out, though?
Yeah, well, he was in the top 9, but Hadjar, who started from the pit lane, re-emerges in this race. He should be ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, and he'll come out in 16th spot. Does Isaac Hadjar, having now put on those medium tyres. Tsunoda and Lawson behind him, having races to forget, and they're on the hard tyre. And I think we've got action from Ferrari. The Scarlet Red team assemble, Jenny Gow, but for who?
It will be Charles Leclerc, the number 16 car, swings by me. Medium tyres, he swings into his pit box. 22 men lift him up. They put on the other set of tyres, the hard tyres. He squeals out from his pit box. It's a time of, let me see the timing, it's not coming up quite yet. It's not going to cut for me, is it?
It's not going to work out.
It's a time that was good. Will it work out?
We'll see. It's a nice swift pit stop from Charles Leclerc in that Ferrari car. The Tifosi on the edge of their seats to see where he will emerge. The graphics team very happily decided not to show us the time that was spent in the pits, but he re-emerges in 6th position in this race, ahead of Esteban Ocon and Lance Stroll, yet to pit. George Russell now up to 9th, Gasly into 10th as Franco Colapinto comes into the pit lane as well to get rid of his medium tyres after running a long stint. It's Verstappen who leads though, yet to pit, along with Norris, Piastri and Hamilton. The top 4 have yet to pit. Albon 2 in 5th, then comes Charles Leclerc, Ocon, Stroll, Russell and Gasly the top 10. Antonelli just outside the points at the moment, with Bortoletto for company in 12th, with Behrman in 13th, Sainz 14th, Hadjar the top 15th, Tsunoda, Lawson 17th, and Colapinto after his pit stop comes out last in 18th. Retirements from Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg. The Italian Grand Prix continues to unfold, but we've got the Women's Rugby World Cup action. Let's head over to Sarah Orchard.
It's New Zealand 0, Ireland 0, and this final match in Pool C, only 4 minutes played, but it's all been about Ireland for every phase of this match. They're 5 metres out now from the New Zealand line, 5 metre scrum to them. And remember, Ireland the only side who have beaten New Zealand in the pool stage of this tournament, and they have got places in the quarterfinals guaranteed, but who's going to finish top of the pops? We shall see. 0-0.
Thanks, Zara. That continues full commentary of the Rugby World Cup on Sports Extra 2. Side by side, running down towards the first chicane. George Russell nicks down the inside of Lance Stroll and gets himself up into 8th spot in this race. Stroll yet to pit, clinging on in his Aston Martin. So too for Pierre Gasly. We're expecting the front runners now seem to be going as long as they can on this medium tyre before swapping to perhaps a soft tyre to go for an aggressive but quick final stint. So we're just getting a look at Charles Leclerc, who came into the pits all crossed up. Big lock-up from him, Jenny, wasn't it?
Absolutely massive lock-up, but he's asking questions of the team once again. Strategy and call for Ferrari. He's saying, if we weren't under threat, why did we need to stop? And the team said, we'll discuss it later. Oh dear, not a happy Charles.
No, he won from 4th on the grid last year. This is where he started the race. Ferrari quickest in a straight line all weekend long. But it's Max Verstappen who has managed to claw the advantage away from them and indeed McLaren. For so long we thought Lando Norris was the man to beat for pole position. In the end, he was only pipped by 0.07 of a second, but now the gap 5.2 seconds. Further back we've got George Russell with the aid of that DRS eyeing up Esteban Ocon's Haas, who doesn't fight that one. Ocon yet to pit in this race, and Russell makes the move nice and easily through the first chicane and out again, and pops himself up into 7th.
And Lando, what are your thoughts on the soft tyre?
Yeah, well, I guess the opposite of the car ahead.
But it depends which car pits first, doesn't it? And I have to say, actually, we saw how awful looking Max Verstappen's medium tyres were. He's still setting personal bests out there, and the top 3 now lapping all about within a couple of tenths of each other. 5.4 is the gap now between Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. Oscar still 6.1 seconds behind his teammate, so still setting personal bests. Leclerc has the fastest lap of the race at the moment, Harry, but of course he's come into the pits already.
So the battle is on up front, but we're just having to sort of see how it unfolds at the moment between the tyres and who can hold on. Max Verstappen with the advantage out in front, clear air on his medium tyres. Lando Norris on the medium, we just heard him on the radio there. There were discussions about whether they go long on this medium as long as they can in the race and then switch to the soft rubber, the quickest rubber out there, but it degrades the fastest, but to go for an aggressive final stint. But we just heard Norris there, perhaps we do the opposite of the car in front. So who will blink first, Norris or Verstappen? And then what about Oscar Piastri, the man who sits pretty at the top of the championship? He will have his lead cut down slightly after this race if it ends like this. But right now, it'll only come down, I think, by a few points from 34 to 31. Piastri was looking set to go long into this race and go for a soft tyre, as we've got Max Verstappen, though, who has been told to box. That means he's coming in for a pit lane stop. Jenny Gow.
He is absolutely. The team welcoming him to the pits. They raise him up. It's a quick stop. They're back on the hard tyres already. How long was that? 2.3 seconds for the Red Bull team.
Nice and quick from Max Verstappen and Red Bull. That puts Lando Norris up into the lead of this race. Verstappen will rejoin this, should come out down in 3rd. Wicket in the cricket, Ellie Oldroyd.
Joe Root's innings is over. He was out for exactly 100. Caught a backward point by Mafaka, the sub off the bowling of Bosch. 371 for 5, and Joe Root making the day of a young fan when he handed him his batting gloves as he went back into the pavilion. And he's just sitting there at the moment, hugging them to his chest, that young man. 372 for 5 England, and we have had 47 overs.
Brilliant, thank you, Ellie. Ball by ball coverage continues on Sports Extra. Max Verstappen has peeled out in 3rd position, by the way, after his pit stop. Now, a little public service reminder for everyone who's listening this afternoon here on 5 Live. There will be a UK-wide emergency alert test at 3 p.m. Compatible phones will vibrate and make a siren sound for 10 seconds, even if they're set to silent. They'll also display a message explaining that a test is taking place. So there will be a UK-wide emergency alert test at 3 p.m. on your compatible phones. They will vibrate and make a siren noise for 10 seconds, even if set to silent. So that will be happening in a few minutes' time, just to remind you of that as we continue coverage. Here's Sainz saying the battery today is a joke. That's the battery system on board the Williams car. Not happy with its deployment, perhaps, for Carlos Sainz. He's currently down in 14th spot, stuck behind Ollie Behrman's Haas as lap 39 of 53. Norris and Piastri still out there, yet to pit. Verstappen has, and now so too Lewis Hamilton, Jenny.
Yes, it's coming to his pit box. He's gone onto the hard tyres. It's not telling me exactly how long it was. 2.1 seconds for Ferrari. That's good.
Yeah, good stop for Lewis Hamilton, who will come back into this race. Russell goes through in 7th. Ocon goes through as well, but Ocon and Stroll have yet to pit. So Hamilton will have to overtake them as quick as he can to try not to lose too much time behind those slower cars. He peels out in 9th spot.
So keeping an eye on these sector times, Harry. Of course, we've had Verstappen come into the pits on a brand new set of hard tyres. Interesting to see how the two McLarens are going to react now. And just to give you an update on those sectors, Max Verstappen, the first sector, 0.3 of a second quicker than those set by Norris and Piastri. But then, importantly, he's another 0.3 of a second quicker in the middle sector. So, will McLaren take the gamble and bolt on a set of soft tyres? I think they've got to take the risk. But what happens, let's say, if they only take the risk with one of the drivers? But you would think that it's going to be entirely up to the drivers of what they do here, whether they do feel that they can go onto the soft tyre. Life expectancy of a soft tyre during the race is expected to be around about 15 to 16 laps, and of course we are on lap 40 of 53.
Pit loss as well is about 24.3 seconds under green flag conditions. If we get some kind of safety car, a virtual safety car, that gets cut in half to 15 seconds. The gap at the moment Lando Norris has to Oscar Piastri is 5.3, and then it's a further 12 seconds back to Max Verstappen. So Norris, if there is some sort of safety car...
Great job on the stop, guys. Sorry, I was long.
But Lewis Hamilton, sorry I was long, referring to going slightly long in his pit box, not quite hitting his marks, which would slow down the pit stop overall, but seems fairly positive after that one. He's still behind Stroll and Ocon, though, who have yet to pit.
Max Verstappen, new fastest lap of the race, a 1:21.402, and last laps by Lando Norris, a 1:22.621 and a 1:22.296 for Oscar Piastri. So McLaren look like they're leaving it late. Like you said, Harry, potentially could be waiting for a late safety car, and there's contact.
And is that the safety car between the Haas of Ollie Behrman and the Williams of Carlos Sainz? They come together at the second chicane. They both get going again, but there was hard contact there. They both spin around. Yellow flag is out, but I don't think they'll need any kind of safety car there to help the likes of Lando Norris in that McLaren and Oscar Piastri. They both carry on. We'll need another look at it, but they were fighting hard in the lower pack with Sainz and Behrman down in 14th and 15th.
Another weekend where Carlos Sainz is involved in some contact. I mean, he didn't leave Ollie Behrman enough room on the inside, but he was way ahead at the apex. So it's interesting to see. I would have expected potentially be a penalty coming Behrman's way as Hamilton now breezes past Lance Stroll into turn 1, and it's looking pretty handy pace-wise, slightly faster than his teammate. And Bortoletto jumps ahead of Pierre Gasly in the Alpine.
Gasly, another of the runners yet to pit in that Alpine, gets demoted now down to 12th spot. The man who took a sensational victory here back in his AlphaTauri days in 2020. What a podium that was. Gasly, Sainz and Lance Stroll on the top 3. Right, here we go then. Through the Curva Grande, Carlos Sainz on the outside, Ollie Behrman on the inside. Late on the brakes, Sainz turns in, and next thing you know, he's being turned round by Ollie Behrman. And
yes, I think that
into the left-hander.
I think that contact there, we'll hear from Ollie Behrman.
Yeah, you just turned across in front of me like I wasn't there.
That was Ollie Behrman saying he just turned in on me. Behrman went round as well. Into the left-hander. Are we going to have to get the driver guidelines out here? Is this going to be another scenario? Carlos Sainz was fuming at the stewards after last weekend at the Dutch Grand Prix in Zandvoort as Albon comes into the pits for his stop, where Carlos Sainz received a penalty after a collision with Liam Lawson. Right, Lewis Hamilton picks off another car in the form of Esteban Ocon, gets himself up into 6th. Ocon yet to pit, Stroll yet to pit. Albon re-emerges. He might just find himself inside the top 10 as that incident looks like it's going to be noted by race control between Sainz and Behrman. Jenny.
Yes, when that collision happened between Sainz and Behrman, I think you could feel what McLaren were almost about to do. Some of the pit crew came out into the pit lane, but no safety car, so they went back in. Andrea Stella on the pit wall, team principal, is nervously watching this. At one point he got up, left his seat, now he's back in his seat, just swinging around left and right. They're going to have to stop soon, but when will it be?
Lap 43 of 53. And still yet to pit for Lando Norris. 4 seconds the gap between himself and Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen is in 3rd. He has pitted. 9.1 seconds back now. He pitted from the lead of this race, having taken it at the start initially, then gave it back in anticipation of possibly getting a penalty for cutting the first chicane. Then retook the lead of this Grand Prix and has been there ever since until he'd taken his one and only pit stop that has allowed Lando Norris into the lead. We think both McLarens just trying to go as long as they can before they do their mandatory 1 pit stop, and we will very much expect them to put a soft tyre on and go to the end. But what will help them and put them in the chance for victory is if there is any kind of late safety car for this Grand Prix.
It will, and could still potentially get them, but I'm just having a little look. Oscar Piastri is doing a really great job. What used to be a weakness of his in terms of managing that tyre degradation, as he's worked on it the past couple of seasons, and he's closing that gap quite quickly down to the back of Lando Norris. 3.6 seconds now, and it was over 6 seconds. Max Verstappen sets another fastest lap of the race. The gap 8.2 seconds between him and Oscar Piastri, 11.9 between him and Norris. As we've already touched on, 15 seconds is a pit stop if there is a safety car, but under green flag racing that rises to 25 seconds. So if they are opting to then put on a set of soft tyres on each of their drivers, they need to eke every ounce of grip out of the soft tyre as possible to give themselves any hope of winning this Grand Prix.
Lap 44.53, Norris leads Piastri 3.6 seconds. Verstappen in 3rd with 7 seconds adrift. Leclerc 4th, Russell 5th, Hamilton 6th, Ocon yet to pit along with Stroll. They're in 7th and 8th with Antonelli and Albon rounding out the top 10. But Albon looks like he's about to try and take that 9th place away from the Mercedes driver Kimi Antonelli. Just outside the points for now is Gabriel Bortoleto. Then comes Pierre Gasly. He is yet to pit in 12th. Hadjar is 13th. Sainz and Behrman's, having tussled in the second chicane, are under investigation for that incident. They're ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, Liam Lawson and Franco Colapinto, the 18 drivers that remain in this Grand Prix. No Fernando Alonso retired with suspension failure. No Nico Hülkenberg retired before the race even began. Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at McLaren now and their pit stop bay. 4 mechanics are out there and they're walking around like expectant fathers, just pacing up and down, doing stretches. It's painful to watch.
I'm sure. Thanks, Jenny. As we just, in those last couple of moments, Alex Albon lined up Kimi Antonelli coming into the first chicane and got the better run on the exit. And actually, Antonelli running him onto the grass, coming through into the Curva Grande. Had to nick back behind Antonelli's Mercedes, and Antonelli then with the inside line coming to the second chicane. But Albon, more confident, laid on the brakes, turns it in and makes the corner his, takes the position. Albon up to 9th.
Lando, we will box this lap onto the soft tyre and I'll come up 1.
You do want to box the other car first?
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll swap it round, so stay out.
Well, only if he doesn't undercut, otherwise I'll box first.
There will be no undercut.
He's just double checking is Lando Norris, but soft tyres are out for McLaren, which I'm guessing is going to mean we're going to see Oscar Piastri come into the pits, Jenny.
Yes, he's in the pits at the moment. He's on the soft tyres. He squeezes out, and it's a good pit stop. The time is not coming up quite yet, but it was a good pit stop. 1.9 seconds. Amazing for McLaren.
Incredible for McLaren, but it's not going to win them the race. Oscar Piastri comes out in third place, but championship damage limitation in a way. He's now able to afford that. He doesn't have to win this race. He doesn't have to finish ahead of Lando Norris here. Came in with a 34-point gap, and that will deplete by a few points if Lando Norris will, as we are expecting, comes in next lap around and pits with the soft tyres to the end. Verstappen will inherit the lead once more, and it looked like Norris will come out back in front of Oscar Piastri, and the team saying there is no threat of Oscar Piastri pitting first and getting in front of you. That won't happen.
He had to double check though, but I think, and box, Norris is being called into the pits. I think that McLaren realised we can't take the fight to Red Bull. Max did such a good job on that medium tyre compared to them. They haven't got no hope really of winning the race, as Norris is now in pit lane, Jenny.
Certainly is. Soft tyres. Oh, it's a long stop. There's a disaster for Norris. It stops. Now he's got going. That must be about 7 seconds by my guessing. It went 6 seconds, 5.9 to be precise. It went wrong for him. That's not going to be close at all then.
Crucially long, 5.9 seconds your stop, considering it was 1.9 for Piastri, who's coming around the final corner now and onto the start-finish straight.
We are boxing the cars this way round to ensure you cover Leclerc. You are free with Lando once he's ahead of the pit exit.
Oscar Piastri is ahead of Lando Norris because of that slow pit stop for Lando Norris. It goes from bad to worse. Norris, at the very least, needed to finish ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri this afternoon. We're getting another look at where it went wrong in the pit stops. Does he hit his marks? Did he go a bit long? The front left looked a little slow. And the front left gun issue. There was a gun issue. The man had to be reminded or patted on the shoulder to give it another go, and that is disaster. It may well be one driver who takes the title at the end of the year, but this is a team sport, and Oscar Piastri has now got himself up into second spot, and even on the way to that, being told free to race. Well, there's not much racing between them. 2 seconds the gap. Can Norris though fight back and try anything in these closing stages? Verstappen leads the race, 18 seconds clear of Oscar Piastri on the soft tyre. Lando Norris in third, also on the soft tyre, who was running and had second locked in, but with that slow pit stop has seen crucial points slip through his fingers while they close up on track. We've got a try in the Women's Rugby World Cup. Sarah Orchard.
Not one, but two for the reigning world champions, New Zealand. They lead 12-0 here against Ireland in this Pool C decider. Too long on the run-up from Brené Holmes. She's missed her conversion there. She'll be frustrated, but Stacey Wacker and Chris Villoco have crashed over for the Black Ferns. They lead 12-0 after 20 minutes.
Thanks, Sarah. That continues on Sports Extra 2. Rugby League now underway with Matt Newson.
Yeah, Hull FC, the visitors, Hull KR, in this Hull derby, the 249th, is so far, neither side have scored any points, still 0-0, but it is typically bruising, as you'd imagine when two rivals come to meet. Hull KR 0, Hull FC 0.
Full commentary of that on Sports Extra 3. End of the innings at the cricket, Ellie Oldroyd.
And an absolutely huge total for England, 414 for 5 of their 50 overs. Jos Buttler finishing 62 not out. We saw centuries from Joe Root and Jacob Bethel, his first in professional cricket, and 62 from Jamie Smith as well. England in the hot seat here, 414 for 5.
Closing stages here on 5 Live for the Formula 1 round 16 of the Italian Grand Prix in this 2025 calendar. Max Verstappen looks like he's got this race held up, but Norris has now been allowed back through on Oscar Piastri to take second place in this race. Piastri playing the team game with 5 laps to go. Lando Norris had second sewn in then pitted after his teammate Oscar Piastri. They would have rejoined in the same manner, second and third, but Lando Norris had a agonisingly slow pit stop, a problem with the front left tyre being latched on and fell behind. Piastri was in second, but now in the last few moments in the run down to turn one, Oscar Piastri letting his teammate through. The man who will still hold on to the lead of this championship come the close of this Grand Prix. It's Lando Norris second and Oscar Piastri third.
You're free to race. Clinical, clear head, mate.
Wow, Alice Powell, that is incredible. I can't imagine Nico Rosberg or Lewis Hamilton ever having done that.
No, I mean, we did. I'd love to hear what what they said to Oscar Piastri and what his response, if there was one. But they're trying to play it fair, aren't they, between the two? There was an issue. So basically, on these wheel guns, they have lights, and that indicates whether the tyre is safe, or the car's safe to release, whether the wheel nut is done up. And in all fairness to the mechanic, it flashed green, but then flashed red, and was flashing between green, which is good, red, which is not good. So he kind of had to reset the gun and then go again. He obviously didn't want to take the risk, which was the right thing to do, to release the car when he wasn't 100% sure if that wheel was tight. So, I mean, it's just the way racing goes, right? So Oscar will probably say, well, that's just unlucky for Lando Norris, but the gap is around 9/10 of a second, actually, and just saying that, Oscar's just dropped out of the DRS, so we'll have to wait and see on this one. But back to Behrman as well, just to note that he has received a 10-second penalty for that contact with Carlos Sainz.
Pit lane action. Stroll and Gasly have come in now and are filtering to the back of the pack as Max Verstappen embarks on lap 51.
Yeah, Norris and Piastri have swapped places, Max.
Just because he had a slow start?
Well, it's not our business, but I guess it keeps it fair between the drivers in terms of championship. You focus on the road ahead as well, please.
Well, that's what Max Verstappen had to say about the McLaren driver swap. He leads by almost 20 seconds. The gap now, Jenny Gow, Norris 1.3 seconds clear of Piastri.
Yeah, and Piastri was saying on the radio he doesn't get it why he was asked to move aside, because a pit stop is still racing, but he will move aside. That's what he said on the radio, and he duly has. Mentality and teamwork is all when it comes to McLaren. They are so fair in their way of tackling this season. It seems almost clear-cut that that's what they would do when they made that decision. Amazing for them.
I mean, yeah, I kind of have to agree with Lando, but of course, if Oscar was then in Lando's shoes, would he have wanted the swap to take place? We're never going to know that, but that's just the way motorsport is. Sometimes luck is on your side. It wasn't on Lando's side last time out at Zandvoort with that DNF in the final stages of the Grand Prix, and it didn't appear to be on his side during that pit stop with that gun issue. So Oscar is still trying to charge him down, but the gap has stretched out now. Lando Norris has set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:21.038, and he's now 1.5 seconds ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri, and up ahead, well, Max Verstappen's looking extremely comfortable. 19.1 seconds is the gap, and must be said, a very solid and impressive drive by Max Verstappen. He's done everything right. He kept the lead, had to give the place back, and then he got the lead back once again, fair and square. So as his engineer was saying, a solid stint by him has led to him having such a huge gap in the final moments of this race.
I think I know what we're going to be talking about in the Checkered Flag podcast
on
BBC Sounds.
Guess the clue.
Later on this evening. Final car to come in and take its pit stop is Esteban Ocon, who had a 5-second time penalty for forcing Lance Stroll off the track earlier on in this race, so he will fall outside of the points. Verstappen cruising to victory. Norris second, Piastri third, Leclerc sits fourth ahead of George Russell, Hamilton in sixth, Albon is seventh ahead of Kimi Antonelli in eighth, Then it's Gabriel Bortoleto 9th. Isaac Hadjar from the pit lane has worked his way up into the points. Sainz, though, is right behind him in the Williams. Then comes Behrman. Sonoda is 13th ahead of Liam Lawson. Ocon has sped out in 15th ahead of the two Alpines, Gasly and Colapinto. Lance Stroll 18th and last of the runners. Fernando Alonso retired in this race with suspension failure. Nico Hulkenberg retired before the race even began. As we embark on the final lap of this race, the Italian Grand Prix here in Monza, the Temple of Speed. Max Verstappen put it on pole by 0.07 of a second and has stayed pretty clear of the field for most of this race. As we've got news from the stewards room, Alice.
Yes, that looks like Antonelli has received a 5-second penalty for erratic driving. That could potentially be weaving left to right. We didn't catch what happened there, but I was just going to say Max Verstappen as well, fastest lap of the race set last time round, and he's on the hard tyre. These McLarens are on the soft tyre. They have set a personal best in the first sector, but it's been a solid effort by Max Verstappen today.
Round the final corner, he curves that Red Bull through the parabolica. The checkered flag is waiting for Max Verstappen, who wins the Italian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, who takes his third win of the season, his third win in Monza, clear of the field, and Lando Norris will come home to finish second, with Oscar Piastri in third. Piastri retains the lead of the championship, but the gap comes down to 31 points. Charles Leclerc carrying the hopes and dreams of the Ferrari fans, the Tifosi, along with Lewis Hamilton, end their day's work with 4th and 6th, having scored no points last time out, but this man bagged all of them.
That's the Italian double. Fantastico. Well done, mate.
Yes! That was unbelievable, guys. Insane. Well done, everyone. Well done. We executed that really, really well. What an unbelievable weekend. We can be really, really proud of that. Well done, everyone.
Pole and the win for Max Verstappen, his 66th career victory. And the first driver to win from pole at Monza since 2019. Norris second, Piastri third, Leclerc fourth, Russell the top 5, Hamilton in 6th. Albon group points for Williams in 7th ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto. Kimi Antonelli with a late race penalty in 9th, Hadjar 10th.
Appreciate that was pretty painful in a way, but I think you've done the right thing. We can talk about it after finish P3.
Yeah, a bit of a tough one. Once the rear calmed down a bit, then it was alright, but yeah, a bit lively to the race. But thanks for the effort. Not the easiest of weekends, and yeah.
Well, Oscar Piastri always sounds fairly calm in the cockpit. This will cause great debate, that swap. Lando Norris with the long pit stop, losing second to his teammate Piastri, who has really been the second McLaren all weekend long, and Piastri playing the team game and letting Norris back through. But really, they didn't have an answer.
It's another masterclass you made, Max. What to say? 20 seconds on McLaren, race pace. You had everything: race pace, control. Yeah, very, very proud. Well done, Max.
Yeah, well done, man. Well done. And first win for you two in the team. So, congrats, everyone.
20 seconds on McLaren. That is mighty from Max, isn't it?
We didn't expect that going into the Grand Prix this afternoon. Of course, they held it out, didn't they, on the medium tyre for maybe a bit longer, his Norris.
And apologies about the stop.
No response from Lando Norris, but McLaren, I think, realised that they didn't have the pace to match the Red Bulls in the end, as side by side down the back straight do go Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, to a big roar and wave from all the Tifosi that have come here this weekend. Always a fantastic atmosphere.
No podium though for the Ferrari drivers. It's a double podium though for McLaren, but neither, Jenny, on the top step.
No, absolutely. They both climb out their car to be weighed, and it's Max Verstappen who pulls his Red Bull up to the winner's bay. He grabs either side of the cockpit and pulls himself out, puts the steering wheel back in. Will he do his customary standing on the top of the car? Yes, he arms outstretched, pulls his fingers out to the air, runs this way. I'm going to duck slightly out of the way. He's running into his engineers, high up by the mechanics. He's crowd surfing now. Amazing scenes. Verstappen very happy with that, and the debrief between the McLarens will carry on and on and on.
Max Verstappen wins the Italian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen, who hasn't won a Grand Prix since Imola, the last Italian race we had on the calendar, but that's called the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, not technically the Italian Grand Prix.
Still a Grand Prix in Italy. He'll be... Helmut Marko was down there as well, and I haven't seen Helmut Marko that happy for a long time. Lando Norris, a big swig of water. He's got a big smile on his face. He knows that that's a few points. That's 3 points clawed back on Oscar Piastri, as Charles Leclerc gives a wave to the Tifosi. He keeps his visor down slightly. He seems a bit disappointed with that. Of course, he would have loved to have won here for a third time, but it wasn't possible. And Oscar Piastri, he doesn't look particularly happy. He's usually always has a smile on his face, does Oscar, but he does now as he looks over to his team. But he'll know that he's still fully in control in this championship fight.
He is, but I wonder if the gap wasn't as big as it was, whether Piastri would have played ball there. He came into this weekend with a 34-point advantage. He leaves with a 31-point advantage. It's still greater than the 25 points that you get for a Grand Prix victory. I don't know. I just think I think it's quite remarkable, actually, that has happened for a championship fight. Both drivers going for their first world title in the same team. I just think that's remarkable.
I mean, from McLaren's point of view, they know that the Constructors' Championship is pretty much, I mean, I don't think anyone else can really beat them. That's done. They want a fair fight on track for the drivers.
Let's hear from them with
Oscar Piastri, third position. Congratulations. How was your race? Hard battle at the beginning with Leclerc that was very fast on the straight, and then how do you judge your race?
Yeah, difficult beginning, definitely. I think maybe not my best first couple of laps, and then we seemed to have pretty good pace for the first couple of laps compared to Charles, and then I could get past, and then it was a pretty lonely race from there. So just struggled a little bit through the first part of the race. The car wasn't exactly how I liked, and once the tyres went away, it actually felt a bit better, which is never a great sign. So happy with the points, and I'll take it.
And at the end, about the strategy, you tried something different using the soft at the end. The little problem that you had with the team, with your teammate, how was there?
I mean, we went so long that the soft seemed like a good tyre to put on. We were just staying out for safety cars if we got any. But eventually Max got back into our pit window, so there wasn't any point staying out much longer. And little incident at the end, but that's okay.
Good points anyway for the championship. No risk at all during this weekend. I think it's fine.
Yeah, not a bad weekend. I think, obviously would love the performance to have been a little bit better, but all in all, I think there's a lot of things to learn from this weekend. So, happy going forwards, and we'll try and be stronger next week.
Thank you so much. Championship leader, Oscar Piastri. Congratulations.
Oscar Piastri, who finished third, speaking with Davide Valsecchi as the track invasion begins.
Lando Norris, what a great start, to be honest. What a great start. I have in mind, did you leave the throttle down there when you touched the grass, that you were close the door a bit too much, Max, or no?
A little bit. I had to, but I try to keep it, even on the braking to turn one. I tried to stay, but I always know it's going to be a good fight with Max, and it was. So enjoyable, but just not the speed today, not the pace of Max and the Red Bull. So A tricky one of the first few weekends where we're just a bit slow, but it's still fun, still a good race, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we really enjoyed the first part of it, that's sure. Can you talk us through what happened at the end at the pit stop?
No idea. I don't know. I felt like I was there for quite a long time, but I guess every now and then, we make mistakes as a team, so today was one of them.
And about the championship, what do you think? You were not lucky at all in the last weekend. Seems that this weekend everything was running in your direction, but then Red Bull and Verstappen quicker than you, second position. What do you think about the championship?
Yeah, I did everything I could today. I couldn't do a lot more. I tried to fight against Max, but we had a good race, and he came out on top, and they deserved it. So nothing more. Second was our best result, and I just need to keep doing what I'm doing.
Congratulations. Yes. Second position. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Lando Norris.
Lando Norris in second place, closes the gap to 31 points to Oscar Piastri in the championship.
Max Verstappen, race winner. What an unbelievable performance. After yesterday, that already was astonishing, your lap. Talk us through your race, because it was something, that performance was legendary, I think.
Yeah, it was a great day for us. Of course, that one was a bit unlucky, but then after that, we were flying. The car was, for me, really enjoyable. I could manage the pace quite well throughout that first stint. And I think, we pitted at the right time. Then, with the hard tires at the end, you can push a bit more. They're a bit more resilient. And, just a fantastic execution by everyone, by the whole team. I think the whole weekend we were on it. And, it's, of course, super enjoyable to win here.
And tell me about the start. You were super hard, like always, like Max Verstappen. When you lost the leadership, have you got in mind that was possible for you to win this race anyway, or you had a bit of doubt? What was in your mind at that time?
I could see that immediately the pace was quite good. I just needed to settle in. There was a lot of fighting going on. And then I could see the pace was there, and quite quickly we were back in the lead.
And about your car, seems that was perfect today. Do you think that you're going to have some more chances this year to let us enjoy your driving?
Well, we'll try for sure. We'll go step by step, race by race. But for us, this, of course, was an unbelievable weekend.
Well done. Congratulations. Max Verstappen, the winner.
The winner of the Italian Grand Prix, as the Tifosi, despite seeing no Ferrari driver on the podium, have absolutely covered the starting grid, because that's where the podium overlooks Jenny Gao, and it is a scene to behold.
Oh, it certainly is. This is where the party starts and possibly finishes, who knows. But this podium is so unique and iconic. It juts out, so you have to walk down a bridgeway. It's above the pit lane and the start-finish straight, so you're high above everyone. And the Tifosi just rush onto the track, invade it with flares that are red and all the different flags from all around Italy. And it's a thing to behold. I'm standing right underneath it in all the mechanics and engineers. Certainly the McLaren engineers and mechanics are all around me. It's a bit further back to the Red Bull and Ferrari ones, but they will have pride of place to see both of their gentlemen on the podium, but it isn't first place, and that will be annoying for McLaren.
It will be, but crucial points nonetheless, especially for Lando Norris ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri. They've made it to the cool-down room, and they're sat next to each other, laughing and smiling. We'll see if we can listen to a little bit of it.
Not a penalty for that?
And that was Lando Norris pointing out the start, where Max Verstappen forced Lando Norris onto the grass in the run down towards turn one, and then cut the chicane, and later gave back the position.
He was so quick on the straight, but so slow on the corner. Ready?
Oscar Piastri frustrated behind Charles Leclerc. Those Ferraris so mighty on the straights. And out went Fernando Alonso in this race with suspension damage, a man who has stood on the top step of the podium for Ferrari here as well. Sonoda and Lawson clashed further round too. Kimi Antonelli was getting his elbows out as well. In the end, Antonelli finished 9th. His teammate up in 5th. Hadjar rounded out the top 10 with a point to his name, as Max Verstappen now joins the two McLaren drivers in the cool-down room. Looks rather pensively at the wall, where his name will once again be added to the winners list.
Yeah, and I was like, no, come on, continue, please. I was like, come on. Yeah, get in the gravel, get in the gravel. Oh.
The driver's laughing about that first lap incident there. We know Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, well, they've come together on track. They do have a good relationship off the track. Outside of the points, Sainz with 11th ahead of Behrman. Tsunoda, disappointing day in the second Red Bull. Whilst his teammate wins, he can only do 13th. Lawson 14th ahead of Ocon, who was the last to pit with that penalty as well to his name. Gasly, Colapinto and Stroll, the 18 drivers that finished that race after 53 laps around the Temple of Speed, with Fernando Alonso retiring along with Nico Hülkenberg on the formation lap with a technical issue in his Sauber. So the crowd invasion very much has happened. It is a sea of red that has slipped from the grandstands onto the asphalt around this Autodromo Nazionale di Monza as round 16 is complete. Just 8 races remain now. We'll have a weekend off next week, and then we head to the flyaways once more. We have completed the European leg of the championship. Baku awaits us in a couple of weeks' time as the podium ceremony begins to get underway. Jenny.
Yes, absolutely. Third place man comes out first, and that will be Oscar Piastri. I'm surrounded by a sea of papaya. He waves to the fans, waves to his team, and shuffles up to the podium, shaking a few of the dignitaries' hands, and waves again. And the second place man, Lando Norris, is next. Out he comes, clapped by the whole team and applauded by the Tifosi, who are flooding onto the track now. He waves as well. There are screams of adoration for him, but this is the winner of the Italian Grand Prix 2025, and he runs out. There are fireworks and flares going off, plenty here. He waves to the fans and takes the top place on the podium with flags waving down on the track, celebrating Max Verstappen's win.
As Max Verstappen takes to the top step of the podium, and we shall hear the Dutch national anthem. The Dutch national anthem for Max Verstappen, followed by the Austrian national anthem for the winning team, Red Bull. Max Verstappen wins the Italian Grand Prix with the two McLarens, Norris second and Oscar Piastri in third. Jenny, I don't know if you could even see anything down there between the flurry of people and the red flares, but what was your standout from this Grand Prix?
I have to say the unmistakable smell of flares and fireworks is prominent right here. It's almost like fireworks night has come ahead of time. What was my standout? I think the talking point that everyone will be saying about is McLaren reversing that order after that failed pit stop for Norris. That's got everyone talking, hasn't it?
I think it has, Alice. I think we're going to get into quite a meaty debate about that, aren't we?
We certainly will on the Checkered Flag podcast. But for me, it has to be Max Verstappen. Sensational drive. When we saw that shot of his tyres that did look like they needed to go quite quickly into the bin, he carried on, eking out the gap at the front. So a perfect afternoon for Max Verstappen.
A third win of the season then for Max Verstappen. Lando Norris second, ahead of his teammate and championship leader Oscar Piastri. The gap now 31 points between the two McLaren drivers as the champagne celebrations get going on the podium that overlooks the start-finish straight. Absolutely ram-packed with fans. The fireworks go off. That is us done here for the Italian Grand Prix, but we've still got a big evening of sport to look forward to with the US Open men's final to come your way. So I'll throw it back to Maz Faruqi.
Harry, Alice, Jenny, thank you. Yes, Harry's saying so much still to come on 5 Live Sport, but so much to unpick after that very eventful Italian Grand Prix. And the guys will be recording the Checkered Flag podcast shortly. That will drop later tonight with all the analysis, all that fallout, of course, as the guys were touching on there at the end of that race. Still plenty of live sport, though, over on Sports Extra 2. You can hear full commentary.